So it's difficult essentially to understand when systems on your network have been compromised, or maybe you have allowed a nefarious customer to gain access to your network as a legitimate customer. So what I did is I took a number of DNS-based real-time blacklists that contained information about compromised systems that were sending spam, that participated in botnets, that had open SOCKS or HTTP proxies, or open SMTP relays. I picked roughly 9 sources and combined them with a BGP feed using the conversation with a full set of routes, BGP conversation. I was able to take the IP addresses that I was getting from the real-time blacklists and assign them the network numbers as close to real-time as I could. So the BGP feed gave us the baseline for ASs who advertised the numbers and see the anomalous advertisements, and to assign the responsible party for the IP address that we found from the RBL. So I did this hourly, essentially, taking in this data, stuffing it into a database, and tagging the records with the type of issue. So I see an IP address from this RBL, I assign it the AS that's responsible for it, and give it a couple of codes, whether it's an open HTTP proxy or an open SOCKS proxy. Generated reports on a daily basis, and I started off with about 60 participants, all of which I got off of the NANOG list. It's up to 110, 120 over the course of about 45 days, and then it's currently bumped up to about 6,000 networks that we're looking at. The current reports are limited to the first 1,000 issues that I have, 1,000 most recent issues. I distribute them in CSV, although some networks have considerably larger numbers of issues than 1,000. And what I found was that of the networks that I was looking at, which were about 21,000 ASNs, I found 9,200 of them, approximately, had at least one issue. And, of course, the largest number of issues were in China, the US, EU, Korea. They seem to have the most number. The highest ratios of addresses, it says here, are on Chinese networks, and that's not true. I'm actually going to get into that a little bit. So one thing that I looked at was the announcements by country. And although it's not on here, we had to use a lot of data from Aaron and Ripe to be able to assign the countries to the AS numbers, and it's not as granular as I would like. As you can see, XX is not a ISO 3166 country code. So that's essentially my error. I haven't been able to determine exactly where those places are. So out of the announcements by country, this is what I was seeing. And it would vary over the course of days, but not significantly. So if we look at the number of issues for the ASs that were distributed globally, geographically, China is the big number one, along with aggregated a number of European countries into Europe, and then the USA and Brazil and Germany. So these are computers that are performing nefarious acts, things that we have some disdain for. They're sending us spam, they're attacking other systems, or they are participating in botnets, DOS attacks, etc. So then what I decided to do was to take the ratio of the issues and try and see if I could get it associated with the address space that's announced. And what that came up with was 1 in every 4 computers is doing some nefarious act in Korea. And Hungary is right up there with them. Then the Philippines, Bosnia, what I can't quite identify, and then the USA. So if we look at the total issues in the US over a 30-day window ending roughly around October 7th, I see Verizon was at the top of my list with almost 50,000 issues with approximately 6 million hosts announced, or a ratio of almost 8%, oh, actually a little over 8% of their network has a issue, which I consider significant. I have no baseline for, what these things mean. I was hoping some of you might be able to provide some feedback. Quest comes in with almost 1%, Charter Communications, and then Earthlink. So who has the worst ratio in the U.S., if this is a good way of predicting who needs the most help? And if anyone works for New Liberty Hospital District in Clay County, if you could stand up, you have almost half of your hosts are compromised in some way, sending spam, participating in botnets, or performing some malfeasance on the network. Foxworth Lumber Company, this one I actually called up the company and tried to talk to their IT manager. And it was very interesting. They are a small lumber company with 50 offices distributed around the U.S. And apparently they have a whole bunch of, is he here?
No. I know.
Please state your
Sorry,
name.
I'm Chris. I work for MCI unit. That's a hospital. Is that like a HIPAA problem? You think?
Who's the hospital?
New Liberty Hospital District of Clay County, Missouri?
Yes, it could very well
Don't go
be.
to the hospital in Missouri.
I don't know the HIPAA, so
Sorry.
somebody should contact them. I'm probably not the right guy.
Do you see this type of, one type of, or you're probably going to answer this later, but one type of end customer is more problematic than another?
I haven't been able to determine which customers are more problematic than others. I see significant issues, and there's a couple of different ways to look at them. I don't know which one really is the most telling. The first way to look at them is by looking at the number, and these are significant. I mean, 49,000 participants, that's a lot of computers. Having half of a /24 approximately compromised is significant. I don't know how completely accurate this is. It'd be great to go into New Liberty and say, let me look at all your systems and find out, some of them are behind a firewall and some of them aren't. Or I haven't been able to go and talk to each one of these 9,000 ASs. I'm just trying to show you the two sides of the issue. So for large ASNs, we're beginning to provide, for large ASNs, we're beginning to provide real-time Jabber XMPP feeds. This is our intent because we cannot produce reports fast enough to get them all out, to send out information to all 9,000 network managers. We're working on authenticated web display, so you guys could potentially log in and see a little smoke detector essentially for your network. And of course, we're negotiating additional data sources. So I would like to thank Spamhaus, the DSBL, CBL, and a number of other real-time blacklists that we use. PCH for the BGP feed, and ServePath, my ISP in San Francisco, that helped us build this stuff. So, questions? And if you have a question, please state your AS. Well,
Over here.
oh,
Sam Weiler, Sparta. I don't know.
what's your AS?
I have no idea. Is there a danger that a completely rogue AS could use this as a real-time oracle to make sure that they're not being detected by any of the blacklist operators?
You've found me out. No, sure, if you can aggregate the information, but a lot of the information was donated, and you'd have to convince the same people I did that giving you the data is a good idea. Or did I misunderstand your question?
I think you misunderstood my question. Could a rogue AS get the report from you to see if anyone's detecting what they're doing in near real time?
Yes, but I'm also trying to detect the rogue ASs. It's another thing.
Hi, Rick. Russ Mundy.
When, at the beginning of your talk, I understood that you got started in this because somebody or somewhere or something got blacklisted and it may have been wrong or incorrectly done, and that this would maybe help prevent some of that. I didn't hear any aspects of that. Is that something I missed, or I misunderstood something?
Oh, no, you're right, Russ. I'm a bad presentation writer. I think to explain what happened is that ServPath had been listed in a number of blacklists, and they got all of their announced space blacklisted. And I was merely, you know, a /24 in there. And when I developed these techniques to help keep them on track, because there's customers that are always getting infected with stuff. And so their NOC team uses this to identify systems that get in the blacklist, but they get out fast enough that it keeps them pretty much below the radar and out of the big blacklists that lock down all of their space.
Okay, so they're really using it as a tool set to go find the people in their realm that are the bad guys,
right,
that then gets them back on the good guy list.
Right. A lot of people
thanks.
apparently use their abuse list as an indicator of what's going on, and this is kind of a more accurate smoke detector than looking at all the reports that you get in abuse. Any more?
Hi, Mehmet from University of Puerto Rico, AS5786. Could you get, all right.
My connection went away, but you can ask your question.
Could you get back, could you get back 2 slides before, please?
What's your answer?
5786. Yeah.
Back 2 slides?
Yep. One more, please. All right. Here that I noticed a small error, and I wanted to mention, because actually in Verizon you mentioned that it is 8%. However, it is, when you make the calculation, it is less than 1%. Just to.
Oh, thanks for the clarification. I'm also a bad mathematician.
No, it's just that I wanted to mention, because 8% and 1% makes really big difference.
It's significant. You're correct.
All right.
So this is almost 1% of Verizon's
Yep.
network.
All right. That's it.
So I actually did a couple of networks before. I'll just throw them out. Maybe you guys might know AS2497. I think that is IAJ. Sorry. With a little, almost 4,300 issues. So Randy's always trying to call me out and say to publish all of the different listings of who's who. I figured I'd just do him. Anything else?
Okay, last one. State your name too, please.
Oh, I have a live microphone now. Bruce Campbell, you mentioned before that your ISP had large swathes of IP mentioned in RBLs. Are you ever worried that some of the listings that you're getting are actually victims of that, where simply one computer has been the issue, but the whole /24/19 whatever has been listed, and thus the ratios for the country are wildly out?
It's a good point, but it's actually not true. The lists that I use, all lists /32s, there's a few lists that use blocks, and I do use those, but in a different way. And so when I'm talking about real numbers here, I'm not doing any like aggregation. I'm not taking, you know, a /18 and looking at all those. These are individual /32s. And when I notice that there is, you know, like a /24 that is just full, or maybe it's a larger block, a number of 24s and a 16, and you'll see that 16 listed in the RBLs that block lists the large blocks. So they seem to be supporting each other, the different RBLs.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I didn't get